Hey, everybody. Welcome back into the Cool Grandpa podcast. It's been a minute since you and I sat down and conversed a little bit and shared some ideas, maybe shared some interviews. And I wanted to get back into it. Now, as we get started, I wanted to bring you up to date about why I took a little bit of a hiatus. A couple of things happened to me over the last or so. One of which, and some of you all know this, is that I lost my job doing project management, upper level stuff for a software company. And so I've been looking for work, and I really decided to jump in, make sure my days were filled in terms of just my schedule. I'm not a good person to be sitting around with a lot of ambiguity. And so what I started doing was substitute teaching in my county on a regular basis. And so what I started doing that, I started working with a special ed center. And this is not necessarily kids that you would mainstream, but it's kids that need to have their own facility, their own classrooms, a really high adult student ratio going on. And I really enjoyed that. So there was an opportunity for me to take over one of the vacant teaching positions. And so I did that. What that meant was all this last summer, instead of running around playing, having a good time, just working a regular 9 to 5 job, I was studying really hard to pass the certifications to be able to go in and be an effective teacher for special education. So I had that going on. Also had some health issues going on that I needed to step back and really focus on and really be a part of to support the person that was going through this. And that person was my wife. And so we wanted to make sure that, I didn't have too much on my plate. So one of the things that I decided to do was to pause the Cool Grandpa podcast, make sure I could take care of what I needed to, and then be able to, at the appropriate time, kind of start everything back up again. So, in the meantime, I've been really active in the different grandparent groups I've been in, active in the postpartum depression support group international. And what I've done as well is I've got a number of friends that had books coming out. So, one of them, I'm holding it up here if you're watching on YouTube, called The Good Grandpa from Ted Page. And this is stories from the heart of grandfatherhood. And of course, Ted's interview was done back in May. And then he was also on my good friend Steve Owen's Fascination Street podcast the first part of September. So I'll put links to those conversations into the show notes if you want to go back and listen to that. I've also got other friends that have launched books about different topics. And so we're going to be exploring those a little bit, as well as maybe taking a little bit of more of a focus on some of the ideas that I have around being a grandfather. I've been interviewing and talking with people about grandfather and grandparenthood for really about the last 5 years. And so I've got my own thoughts, my own ideas about what it means to be a grandfather, what we can do as intentional grandparents to really make sure that we are having an effective and a significant role in not only the lives of our grandchildren, but also the lives of the kids and the younger people around us. And of course, depending on your age, kids could be people in their 40s and 50s, or kids could be 6 and 7 year olds. So, wherever you're at, however I talk about these things, make sure you just adjust accordingly to who you're around. But I really have been felt called, not prompted maybe, to talk about how we can live lives of significance. I think we've had a number of guests on that have really been taking this to heart in terms of making sure that, we don't just retire and then we still have another 30 years or more where we can be active, but that we maybe as we get into the grandparenthood, and that could be people in their 40s all the way up till 200, I don't know. And those people don't just retire, check out, and are not involved in the lives of people around them, but really look for areas where they can have some significance. This episode is going to be a little bit of a short one, but I've created a prompt and something to help us with, I think, offering some guidance without really being, what's the right word? Like really demanding or really, I think, intrusive. That's probably the word I'm looking for, into the lives of our grandchildren and even your adult children. So, again, depending on who you might be working with, who you might be focused on building impact and significance with, I want you to be able to help them see themselves in a way that they know that they can grow and develop. Now, when you're dealing with kids and little kids, of course, you're going to have to scale these things down. And when you're dealing with older people, you can definitely add in more concepts. You can add in more things to make this more significant to them. Where I've been inspired about some of this has been some of the stories and some of the presentations around writing your own story, right? We've been talking with a lot of people about, being able to take pen to paper because there's something emotionally significant about doing that. I think the process of actually writing really embeds those ideas into our minds. And so, what I want you to do as a grandparent who is guiding your grandchildren and even maybe your children is to help them through this process. The first step on this worksheet that I have that I'll put into the show notes, you can have this, it's a freebie. You can manipulate it however you want. But step one is to sit down with them and ask them, how do others see me? Now, the question is really around, how would people describe you if you left the room? So I think with even little kids, first grade, second grade on up, this is a simple question that you can ask is going to be, hey, Sally, hey, Robert, tell me, if you left your classroom, how would, and I went in and asked the question, tell me about Sally, tell me about Robert. What are some of the words that people would use to describe you? And you can write those answers down. And then what's interesting too is, as a grandparent, you could write down, well, what you feel you would describe or how you feel you would describe your grandchild. And this isn't an opportunity to go, they're lazy, they shirk duties, they're dishonest. It's not that. It's really more of a, hey, how do the grandchildren think that they come across in the world? So some of the answers that the grandchild might give you is, people think I'm funny, people think I'm smart, people think I'm this, people think I'm that. Now, I will tell you, if negativity comes up, that's an opportunity for you to have a really heartfelt discussion about why they gave you that answer. And you start asking the why questions, right? Don't go in for black and white yes or no answers for the questions about why a child might give you something negative, but really go, why? Tell me more about this. Help me understand what's going on, because you may have just uncovered something that maybe even mom and dad aren't aware of, that you can share with mom and dad appropriately to make sure that they know what's going on with their grandchild. So, first question on here is, how would people describe you if you left the room? And then, part of this next part is going to be, how do I want people to describe me when I leave a room? So you get what they feel people are going to say, and then you can ask them, what do they want people to say about them? And this is a great opportunity too for grandparents to give an answer, not only about what you would think that you want your grandchild to be like, but maybe this is what you share and you're a little vulnerable here and saying what you hope people describe you as. or what you hope the grandchildren describe you as. And then you can start to build a little bit about, okay, so what's the difference between how people would describe you currently to how you want people to describe you? And see, there's going to be a gap there. And what you want is to be able to start to bridge that gap. In business terms, we're looking at a little bit of a SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we're not looking for exactly that with this exercise with the grandchildren. What we're looking for is there a gap between how they feel people describe them or how they feel they come across in their perception to what they want to be? So if somebody wants to be the strong kid in the classroom, physically strong, okay, great. And maybe that's not what they said people would describe them as. It's an opportunity for you to be able to go, well, how do we make you the strong kid in the class? Do we start to do some exercises? Do we start to get you involved in some different sports? Do we get you some athletic equipment to be used at home? These are some ideas and some things that you can use to then be able to follow on throughout the coming months, the coming year or so, to be able to check in with them. So when you give them a call, when you shoot them a text message, when you leave them a video message on mom and dad's phones, you can always ask, hey, Joey, I know that you're working on being the fastest kid at school. How's that coming along? Are you working hard on developing your leg muscles? Are you watching videos on how to run faster? Are you starting to do these things? And then you become a little bit of an accountability coach to them, right? And you do it in a way that they don't really understand that you're the accountability coach, but you become that. And it gives you something to talk about. I mean, so many times grandparents are fishing for things to talk to grandkids about. But if you go through this exercise about how would people describe you if you left the room, I want people to describe me? These things give you already almost a year's worth of discussion points. Now, you might not be spending 45 minutes on the phone with a grandchild, or your in-person visits aren't going to be completely centered around this, but this starts to feel out a way that you can ask a lot of deep and probing questions that also shows the grandchildren that you care, that you're listening, that you're paying attention to their hopes and dreams. Now, this next part is one where if you have older grandchildren, older children, you can extend the time horizon. And so this next one is really, what do I want to be doing in 5 years? Now, if you're talking with a fifth grader, all they want to do in 5 years is maybe have a driver's license, right? When they're a sophomore, or maybe they want to be starting to work and earn their own money. If you're talking to a first grader, in 5 years, they want to be able to start middle school. If you're talking with somebody that's already 18 years old, maybe they're looking ahead to finishing up with a trade school and starting a business, or working on a university degree, or doing something a little bit more involved than maybe what a first grader would do. But what this also gives you the opportunity to do is really kind of see what their hopes and dreams are. Where are they thinking? I think one of the things that really can make kids anxious and can lead to some depression is kids feeling like they're totally untethered, in the sense that they don't know where they're going, they have no direction. And so whether it's academics, whether it's in their personal lives, they might just be adrift in what's going on with them. By doing this, you are asking them what are their hopes and dreams. And then you can work with them to start to ask those questions. What did you do this month that helped you towards your goal? If somebody wants to become an electrician, what did they do to learn about circuits? What did they learn about resistance? What did they learn about so many different things that fall into being an electrician, even like how to run a business, maybe? Did they shadow somebody from school? Did they shadow somebody's mom, somebody's dad? Did they see how the billing goes on? Did they see how they interact with customers? Whatever that might be, that starts to also give you a lot of information about where they're going, where they're heading to. And then, you know what? When the storms of life really jump up and they bite up these kids in their butt, as they're going to do, as it does to us, what this does is it helps you with some course correction, right? Maybe they're going through a loss of a friend that moved away. Maybe parents are splitting up. Maybe something's going on. But if you've taken the time to talk to them ahead of time about where their hopes and dreams are, what do they want to be doing in 5 years, you become that mentor. You become the old guy in the white robe in so many of the tropes in movies and in books, right? The wizard, let's say, that can sit there and help guide the troubled hero to where they need to go and where they want to go. Okay, so let's make sure we're clear on this. This is where they want to go. And it's okay, where they want to go may not be exactly where you think they need to go. It's their life, it's their journey, it's their path. And you know what? They're young enough to course correct and change their minds. That 15-year-old that in 5 years, when they're 20, wants to be joining the Marines and wanting to do a certain job in the Marines. Something might happen. Maybe they don't pass the physical. Maybe something else happens and they change course, and then they have another dream that they want to do in 5 years. That's okay. That's part of life. So, grandparents, let's remember that we're going to change and change often. That's being flexible. Going back to my IT PM days, that's being agile. That's having that mindset of, okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. Okay, that's working. Great. Let's build on it. So remember, looking ahead, helping them map out where they need to go. And this doesn't have to be a detailed map. Leave it high level. Leave it to where they want to own some kind of a hot rod, or they want to go hike the Appalachian Trail. That's fine. Leave it like that. But then you can be checking in with them when you have your conversations. Hey, have you been studying up about what kind of gear you're going to need? What's the average cost per mile to hike the Appalachian Trail? What's your plans? Are you going to go north or are you going to go south? Some of those details you can flush out as you start to talk to them. And then all of a sudden they have in their mind and maybe written down a way that they're going to achieve that goal. And you're going to be the person that's doing that. Now, these last couple of things is, remember to do the personal check-in. So as I said, when you talk to people about how they think people would describe them when they leave the room, how they want people to describe them, and then what do they want in 5 years? These are all bits and bytes of information that you can use when you do check-ins. And again, the way everybody's communicating these days, you may send text messages and not get a response. But if you send a text message saying, hey, how are you coming on your goal? How are you coming with learning more about being an underwater welder working on oil derricks out in the North Sea? How are you coming across doing these things? That matters to them. They're going to read that, they're going to think about it, and they're going to know that you care. They're probably, the way younger generations communicate, may not get back to you, but it will sink in. So remember that this is all information that you can use for personal check-ins. And then, you can also just talk about, what did you learn together? What did they learn about you when you said, hey, this is how I want people to think about me, or this is how I want people to describe me? Where are your goals in 5 years? Have you shared that? Have you told your grandkids that you want to have your memoirs in your family history written within the next 5 years? That you want to go from, essentially, let's say, the 1800s to present day with genealogy and family history and family stories? Have you told them that you wanted to have your first novel published in 5 years? Have you told them that you want to hike the Appalachian Trail in 5 years, or the Pacific Coast Trail, or you want to take a cruise around the world? Have you shared that with them? Do they know that? Do they know that that's what you want? that's what you're working on. So I think there's some ways that we can do this, and ways that you can obviously scale up and scale down based upon age. And I hope this gives you some ideas about what you can do, whether you're seeing the grandkids in person, maybe over the coming holidays, or maybe you just are talking on the phone to them and you keep this as a little bit of a prompt and you just go, "Hey, I was just thinking, Mark, what is it that you want to be known as, in your school? What do you want to say? If I walked into your classroom and asked all the students in your class, tell me about Mark, and give me one word or give me a short sentence, what are some things that they would say? And then what are some things that you would say? Man, that's going to stop them in their tracks. They're going to have to think on that for a little bit. But what they give you is going to be absolute gold that you can use for the coming months and coming year. So I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, please drop me a note in the comments. It's always great to see and even hear from you. I've got a thing set up on the website that if you click on it, you'll see a little microphone on the side. You click on that thing, you can leave me a voice comment. I'll check those out. If you have any questions about grandparenting or about grandkids in general, please feel free to give me those questions. I'll do a little digging, a little research. I may give you what the experts are saying, and then I'll probably throw in my 2 cents. So I hope you, again, found this useful. I hope you guys are doing everything you can to be successful as the grandparent that I know you are. Just because you're listening to this, you're already involved. And so let's do even maybe a little bit better in the coming weeks than maybe we have before. And not a lot, just 1% every week. That leads to a lot. So please leave me these comments. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Apple, Podcast Addict, whatever it is, please make sure you go and subscribe. Leave some comments and some reviews. That always helps us with the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. I hate to ask, but it is what it is. And so cool, kids. Until next time, remember to stay cool.